And we are live. Here we go.
There we go.
Uh, Welcome to episode 3 of the Bull Moose Lodge podcast. Got a WrestleMania preview prediction with my buddy Joe here. Um, uh, so, Joe, you want to introduce yourself here? Lead it off?
I'm Joe. Um, that's Joe. If you don't already know him,
I would hope so.
um, the first thing I'd want to probably go over is let's go over the first match on night one. Do you have that ready?
Uh, I just kind of gonna go spitballing what we think.
Okay.
But
Um,
if you want to start
ready.
off,
Let's jump into the tag match, night one. Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns and The Rock. We had a good conversation a couple days ago on that. I kind of want to feed off that.
all right, how do you think it's gonna go?
Um, well, the match itself, I think, will be relatively clean as far as the bloodline not being involved right away. Um, this is where I think um, The Rock will start to kind of uh, pull himself away from the bloodline. Maybe find himself like a little argumentative with Roman, like he's not doing things his way, and there's gonna be some sort of confrontation. I still think they're gonna pull off the match due to bloodline interference down the road, in during the match, but this is where I think the start of my thought is The Rock is going to turn on them, and it's based on yes, Roman Reigns calls him the tribal chief. The Rock acknowledged him as the tribal chief, but The Rock said he's the high chief, and he's been this past Raw he's been calling himself the final boss. Now this kind of alludes to me thinking that he's the top and Roman's just not recognizing that. And I think The Rock is going to put him into place regardless of how the match turns out.
Yeah, I was thinking that way back when Rocky first came back, and Katie even agreed that they're gonna play off the whole tribal chief versus high chief, and eventually the Rock's gonna pull rank somehow. And I was in the long run, I was thinking, however the first match goes, we'll see the power struggle between those two. Going into night two, Cody's gonna eventually win, and Roman without the title has no power, so to speak. And then people are going to start, you know, Jimmy, Solo, they're
Yep.
going to start looking towards The Rock as the high chief. And, you know, that will lead into either Backlash or SummerSlam, which is the bigger show.
Yep.
And Rock wins. Roman takes the break. And Rock appoints a new tribal chief. And it'll be if that's the way it goes, I predict Jay. He's gonna pick Jay over Jimmy or Solo.
I think that makes more sense based on the loyalty of, Jimmy and Solo with Roman. Um, and then we can't leave out Paul Heyman where he's going to go. Um, that's kind of an interesting figure too, and I think he's just going to go where he sees who's got the most power, right? And if Rock does pull the rank, I truly think he may go with The Rock, right? And just everyone, and I could see, Jimmy and Solo maybe kind of fizzing out a little bit, and like a new bloodline kind of be created in a sense.
Hi, handsome.
Hello, you're live. You're on camera.
What's up?
But with Heyman, with him getting inducted this year, I don't know if he's gonna. I don't know if it's a sign that his involvement's gonna end after WrestleMania or shortly after WrestleMania. But if he stays around, I could see The Rock letting him go and letting whoever, if the bloodline continues, letting them pick their own wise man, and Heyman being Heyman, trying to find somebody else. Whether he tries to go back to CM Punk, if Brock comes back, trying to, hey buddy, hey, what's going on? Or if he just tries to start anew.
Well, it's an interesting fact. I mean, with him turning on Brock twice, in a sense. If you remember way back in the old ruthless aggression era, he turned on Brock when he was fighting Big Show,
Yeah,
and then he turned on Brock again when he went to when Roman started the whole, the bloodline. So I'd like to see them two come back together, but I don't foresee that happening at least right away. I can see Brock Lesnar returning by himself and causing some sort of havoc, it being between Roman or him just coming in and just destroying the bloodline, at a later date, not necessarily at WrestleMania. It'd be kind of cool if it happened at WrestleMania, but I don't think it's in the cards.
yeah. I mean, that might have been the plan, but the whole, Vince McMahon legal issues that Brock got involved with possibly could have changed that. But
Yeah, the thing I did notice, and I looked at as Brock Lesnar, his picture is back up on the website. He's listed as a free agent. So I think he's cleared the majority of any type of allegations towards him. Because I believe they removed Vince and Brock immediately when it came out, and Brock now returned. So I don't think he's done. I just, I think they got to wait till a better time.
yeah,
And I think, like you said, they got WrestleMania pretty much set how they want it to kind of commence. So I can see like a SummerSlam type thing, perhaps,
yeah,
where, for example, like if Rock versus Roman happens, like Brock returns, destroys them all, and you don't get that finish. Maybe that'll be in the cards.
I mean that Brock showing up at SummerSlam and at least facing off with The Rock
Well, facing
21 years late after him beating The Rock at SummerSlam.
for the Universal title. Remember
I
that? That was 21 years ago. Where not the Universal title. I'm sorry, the undisputed title.
Yeah,
Let me correct myself. Sorry. Where Brock he pretty much manhandled The Rock, but
yeah,
but that brings up an interesting. 21 years later, do they face off again, or does Brock just come in, destroy everything, and then you know, and then that's it? And I think the bigger impact would be Brock coming in, causing automatically like a DQ, right? Maybe takes them both out, and he's the only one left standing, and then he says something along the lines of, saying he's back and he's just going to call it, all sorts of chaos regardless, between The Rock and Roman, and just make them their lives a living hell.
yeah. I mean, he'll definitely wherever he goes when he comes back, he'll be a thorn in the side of Cody, Seth, Drew, whoever is holds the Raw title at that time, which is getting up the bloodline. Drew, Seth, who you think's walking away?
I think Drew is, and I'm just looking at facts here. Seth has been dealing with a knee injury, so I think Seth will drop the title. And Seth goes, rehabilitates his knee. Drew carries that title. It's only fair and right. He carried the title. He carried the business during COVID with no fans. You
Yeah,
gotta give the man his due, right? I mean, he was.
and
I
he's
think
been working his ass off now.
he has. And I think he is that top star that can carry the business. He bettered himself through the years since when he first came in the business.
Yeah,
I thought he deserved the title last year when he was facing Gunther and Sheamus. I thought he should have won that triple threat. And it seems like he gets so close, and he just kind of feel for a guy who's you know main event material, but they keep putting mid card, and it's like, when are you going to give him his due?
yeah. And, yeah, I mean, Drew's definitely a top level talent, and they've definitely kept him in the story, in the hunt. Um, being there, and with Seth being injured, how depending on how bad his back is, wanting to get, even if he just wants a break for a while because he's been carrying that for the better part of a year now. Um, Time to kind of pass it off to Drew, let him take it even further, and see where he takes it.
That's
Um,
No, Drew, I think, can definitely take it to another level. I mean, don't get me wrong, Seth is a great talent. I just he needs to, obviously, if he's injured or whatnot, he needs to get better so he can still perform at that top level that everyone expects him to.
yeah,
Um,
you know,
do you think, out of Jimmy and Jay, that's an interesting match? Um,
I,
uh, I think that's happening night one,
yeah, night one.
which I think with interference with Soul, I think Jimmy takes it. Everyone's going to want Jay to win, but Jimmy's going to take that.
See, I, in my heart, I want to say Jay's going to win.
That same year.
I see Solo trying to interfere, but I firmly expect Solo to at least show up. Where Jay will have in his corner, I see Solo coming out to try to help Jimmy, and then Sammy coming up to help Jay, and to at least be an equalizer, to at least distract Solo, and somehow it'll be a great match regardless.
I think it'll be a good match. Or
Both,
do we see potentially, where maybe Jimmy leaves the bloodline, then you get reunited, the Usos as just their own standalone tag team before bloodline.
yeah, I could definitely see Jimmy having a change of heart, but where I would have an issue with them coming back together, at least as of right now, they're pushing Jay, and I want to see him. I want to see both of them succeed on their own before coming back together. You got an Uso on Raw, Uso on SmackDown, and at least have Jay win his solo title, and then I would like to see them come back together, but I could also see it being like an Edge and Christian situation
No,
where
that was a good example of two superstars that were great as a tag team, were also great as individually going off on their own, right, as singles competitors. I was going to go with another example that were kind of, you know, the writing failed these two people, but I was going with the Dudley Boys when Devon and Bubba were drafted to separate brands. Bubba did all right, right? I mean, I think he honestly did better than Devon. They gave Devon you know, this dumb gimmick, and they had him bring up Batista, right? And it's like that I think that personally stole Devon's thunder. I mean, granted, Devon being the veteran and like, yeah, let me bring up this guy, right?
I mean,
But
to be
it,
fair, as much as Reverend Devon did not work, if you said we want to put Batista with Devon, would you be opposed to it? Absolutely not. There's very few people I would trust more than Devon or
no,
Bubba.
right, right, just based on knowledge of the business, right? I mean, Devon is on record for like having the most amount of matches in a career. Some astronomical number too. It's like 1,700 or something. It's insane how many matches he's performed in his career. So yeah, a trusted veteran to bring up a rising star, you know. But that was just one of the tag teams I thought that they didn't do. It didn't work out. I think they work better. You get better chemistry with them together. You know, the fans react better.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. There's very few tag teams that you could point to that are as cohesive and just gel so perfectly over the Dudleys. You know what I
no,
mean?
I don't think over the Dudleys. I don't. I think they're like probably besides like the Road Warriors. I think they're a close second as far as like chemistry together. Because the Road Warriors, you know, the road. Not to get off on a tangent off of WrestleMania, but the Road Warriors separate. I mean, I don't think they would survive. I mean, yes, monster. You know, they're monsters of men, but it's somehow having those two beasts together made them
Yeah.
like a dominant force. You know, same with the Dudleys. They were not obviously monsters of men, but you know, you know they still dominated the tag team division and one of the most successful, if not the most successful tag team ever in wrestling.
Yeah. And you know how I feel about the Road Warriors. They'll always be my number one.
Yep,
Dudleys will always be my number two.
yep. I'm right there.
Um, just for and the Dudleys. The reason I put Road Warriors number one is because they did it so many different places, and the Dudleys caught up with that with ECW, WWE, TNA. They kind of caught up that way. Um, but yeah, just together, they're both teams are just once you hear that what a rush at the beginning of the entrance, you just know. Once you hear that missile coming down, you just know, and it's a whole different pop, a whole different experience. That
Absolutely. You know, and I understand they tried to incorporate Spike with Bubba, and and that poor bastard. I felt horrible for because they pretty much used him for showing off these huge guys that can throw him 20 feet outside the ring. And granted, Spike was all for it, and I think he helped a lot of stars. Like, for example, Brock Lesnar. If you don't remember, Brock Lesnar's when he first came into the came in, he like powerbombed Spike like 4 times in a row.
poor little Spike. He made a career out of being the runt.
Yeah, he did, and he succeeded at it. I mean, like Undertaker choke slamming him off over the ropes onto just the mat. I mean, and you could just see that level of hurt. I mean, yeah, it might be a little pad, but what's under that pad? Cement. Poor Spike. He took all this stuff, and I think he did it for the better of the business. Um, Not to
Yeah,
get off on a tangent, I apologize, but
no,
we
no,
got.
it's all good.
Um,
This is what I want to do. You know.
if you're talking about tags, I could. Not that it'll happen, but I liked when the Hardys. Jeff obviously had a lot more success in the company than Matt, and unfortunately, his personal choices interfered with that because Jeff, was a top dog, and it just, he fizzled his chances away with the business.
Yeah,
And
this might be a hot take, but with hindsight being what it is, if you ask me, who would you out of the Hardys, who would you pick as your cornerstone? I'm taking Matt all day. I think Matt is probably more well-rounded. He's more. I think he might have a little bit more of a brain. Not a brain. It sounds bad. I apologize. But he probably has more of an ear for it, creative, and you don't have to worry about the drug problems.
No,
Plus, he's
no.
version 1, so
Version 1, we're waiting for that version 2.0.
yeah, at least 1.5.
Yeah, something. We're still waiting for that update, if you will. Um, no, I think if Jeff didn't have the drug issues, I think I would have taken him as like the cornerstone, just because him and Matt both, right? I mean, if we're gonna go back into they brought this new high flying type extreme, if you will, into the WWE. Um, incorporating ladders that was rarely ever seen, and they're using them in ways that no one even thought of. Besides standing up in the middle of the ring and climbing up to try to grab a belt, you know. So I mean, I respect what he did, but like you said, I don't think he'd be a cornerstone. You know,
And taking nothing away from the Hardys or even Edge and Christian, it was the perfect storm at that moment.
oh
The
yeah,
Dudleys coming in, the Hardys coming up, Edge and Christian coming up, and them all clicking in place. It was like the perfect. If if they were 3 years earlier or 3 years later, I don't think they would have been as successful as they are. You
no,
know what I
and
mean?
no, absolutely, and go back to like TLC 2 at WrestleMania 17, which I firmly believe was the best WrestleMania out of them all. Um, just all the star, just all the. I mean, we could talk about that if you want, but that was just star-studded talent across that match card. But that match, I mean, actually, I think that one stole the show. It even took away some of the umph that Rock versus Austin did when he shook McMahon's hand at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like you just got done watching these 6, 7. Well, let's see, Rhino, Lita got involved, so you had 8 people either going through tables, getting thrown off, and like that was the show, was TLC 2.
And we could definitely come back to that after we kind of talk with the lineup with this WrestleMania.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so going into the
Like
other title matches,
yes,
you think Gunther is walking out with or without the title?
he's going against Sami Zayn, correct? Um, so no disrespect to Sammy, I know the fans love him, but he's not at the same level as Gunther as far as like in ring capability. As far as from what I seen, like I seen Gunther when he first came in, and he was kind of he was chubby. He
Yeah.
like, oh, look at this bloke, right? Um, but he bettered himself, got him, you know, uh, his physique improved, and just his in ring ability, being more of I guess, a strategist and submission. Sammy, I'm not no disrespect to Sammy, but they're just Gunther's here, Sammy's here. In my eyes, I see Gunther winning.
I agree. I think Gunther's winning um, for the simple fact that I don't think Sammy is the guy right now. With as much as they've kind of been pushing Gable, I think Gable's going to be the guy to dethrone Gunther.
Right, and it's got to
And
make sense too, right? To dethrone somebody. I mean, especially someone who's holding the title belt for over a year. Um, can't just throw that's like throwing like Maven to
yeah,
dethrone the Undertaker, right? I mean, it's like no.
and again, like you said, with all due respect for Sammy, I like Sammy.
I do
You
too.
know what I mean? And
I
you
like how
know,
they're pushing him, right? And that's what keeps the crowd in it. They push, and I think Sammy's all about business. So I mean, he's going to take it with stride. I think. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
Joe being upset, right, that he lost the match, but you know, still make him the fan favorite. Out of both of them, I think he's the fan favorite. I don't even think Gunther's really a heel per se, just based on what he's able to do in the ring. I think he's earned that respect enough from the crowd. There might be boos, but I mean, Have you seen his chops?
You know, I wouldn't even want to get chopped by Gunther.
I
Damn it.
mean, but who did he chop last week? And he just made him. Who was it? He made him like do a total backflip.
Who did he wrestle on Monday?
Oh, it was Dominic Mysterio.
Oh, to be fair, I think he could have blown on Dominic Mysterio, and Dominic
But
would
it
have
was.
flipped over.
But then yeah, but it was just like he's not putting like he's putting everything he has into that chop.
He is a big guy, even with losing the weight and toning up. He's a tall individual. He is a
Yeah,
big individual.
he's a big guy. Yeah, I mean he's a big guy. And Sammy, like I said, no disrespect, but I don't think he stands a chance. And I honestly think it's going to be like a 10-minute match, and because you can't stretch that out. I mean, you can't make that go 30 minutes. Sorry, that's going to be a quick match. You know, kind of maybe essentially in the KBFA world, bring Sammy back down to like, okay, buddy, you're still not at this level, right? I mean, you tried the world title, you didn't win. Now you're trying the Intercontinental title, you're not going to win. Like, find his niche, right? Find your place. I think Sammy's place, honestly, is Gunther can't have the title if he wants to be Intercontinental Champion. Sorry. He's got to win in a match where it's got to be like a 6-person ladder match for the Intercontinental title, and he sneaks up the ladder like, holy crap. Like, kind of that pop. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think he's beating, at least in writing, he's not being a Gunther. Like,
yeah,
straight up. It's not, no, no.
yeah. I mean, I could definitely see him being a quick 10, 15-minute match. I definitely think they both can go the distance. Um, Gunther proved that at the Royal Rumble that he
Yep.
can go the distance. Um, so I don't think it's a matter of having it be that long. It's gonna have Sammy's gonna have his high spots. He's gonna sell it, but Gunther's gonna walk out with the title, and
Yep.
it's gonna lead up to Gable, and that's gonna lead to that's gonna free up Gunther for the world title because he's proven that he deserves it, and he's a believable champion. So
No, and you got other superstars there too. I mean, they want to push. Like you still got a lot of good talent out there. Like you got your LA Knight. I mean, personally, I'm
yeah,
not a fan of him. I'm not a fan of him. I find the yeah thing a little annoying, but I found the what
yeah,
thing awesome. So it's like the same thing, but more positive. um,
what?
um, yeah, right. But you got like the LA Knight, who's a big star, like who I could see could knock off Gunther. Right. I'm not saying if they're going to see that, or same with like AJ Styles. Like AJ Styles hasn't held the title in how long? And I think he'll be a good one. Like if you put like Gable, like I like how they're pushing Gable, but maybe you make it a little more interesting. You throw some star-studded talent in there and make like holy crap, how's Gunther going to get out of this? Right, similar to what they did with Roman in his last world title defense, where it's like there's no what the fatal four with the Royal Rumble, like there's no way it's gotta and then they pull it off.
Yeah,
But I think if they do that with Gunther now in a singles match, all the way, Gable, give him his shot, right? And I think Gable can pull it off. Like let
yeah,
him knock off Gunther, get him that pop, give him that like, okay, buddy, you deserve this.
yeah. He definitely has that Kurt Angle persona. That what was his name? Uh, they tried making him the next Kurt Angle, tall dude.
Oh, jeez. Oh, his son supposedly, right? That guy.
No, um, the blonde dude. He was world champion.
Oh, Jack Swagger.
Yes,
That
he,
dude, we'll come back to him. I think they did him wrong. Like that, he had a lot of talent. He finally found his niche before they released him.
yeah. It was like they tried making him the next Kurt Angle, but that was definitely not his road. Whereas Gable can fit that role better as the Kurt Angle cookie cutter kind of mold,
Right.
you know. And him winning the, at least the Intercontinental title, definitely cement him as that. Okay, this guy's legit.
No, yeah, for sure. And you got to put, in respect to the younger talent coming in, right? And Gunther's been in the business for a long time, not necessarily with World Wrestling Entertainment, but just in wrestling in general. And I think I think he would be one to wouldn't mind giving them the push, right? And hats off. I hope that does align up where Sammy loses, Gunther wrestles, Mabel, and I would even do it at Backlash. Make that like maybe that not the signature match, but one of the top three matches towards the end of that night, and then maybe you do the rematch at SummerSlam and then really prove that he's legit by knocking Gunther off twice in a row.
Yeah.
Give him that.
Yeah, let him hold on to it for a while, 6 months, and excuse me. And I
Couldn't
heard
hold that.
Katie in the next room when I was trying to think of Swagger's name. She brought up, I believe she said Braun Breaker, Steiner's kid.
Oh yeah.
Kid's gonna be a beast.
See, I'm not gonna deny that. I just think a lot of the kids. I mean, I think it's like a 75-25 shot if they're gonna really work out. I mean, you remember what was the $1 Million Man,
Yeah.
right? And he had a boy that tried to join the business.
He DiBiase Jr. He got tied up in that whole friggin'
He did. He made some poor choice.
scheme, and it's a shame. He was better than that, I thought.
And same with who was it? Curtis Axel.
Yeah.
Mr. Perfect's son.
I think they did him dirty too.
That, like Mr. Like Kurt Hennig, like they just did him wrong. Like, oh, we're gonna put him with Bo Dallas. Not taking anything away from Bo Dallas, but make him the B team.
Yeah. And like you said, it's kind of like a 75-25 shot. You know, obviously Randy Orton did well. Cody's doing great.
Right.
Randy Orton's doing friggin' amazing.
Said that.
Did I?
You did. Said Randy Orton.
Bray.
Cody Rhodes and back to Randy Orton. That's
Um,
how good he's doing. He had to announce. He had to say it twice.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's a Viper. You got to say it to him.
Hey, if you didn't know, Randy Orton's doing really good.
Yeah. You got to say it so we don't get an RKO out of nowhere.
No, I'm looking. Hang on. Okay, I'm good.
But out of that kind of second wave of second generation superstars after Randy came in, the only two that are kind of still standing is Cody and Natalia.
Yeah.
And they haven't done shit with Natty.
No.
So, and now we have Charlotte. So,
But again, I mean, I haven't seen. I've seen Charlotte out there, but again, it's like they've they really pushed Charlotte hard to win titles and like lose them as well. So now she's almost got as many titles reigns as her father.
yeah.
And it's like, could we have seen that coming? Absolutely. But you're doing it such a short span where Ric Flair did it over, you know,
30, 40 years.
right. And I understand that, women may not last as long in the business. It is rough, right? I mean, no, I'm not trying to be sexist and other, but just face it. I mean, men have longer careers in professional wrestling than women. It's you just look at when they retire as opposed to when men retire. I mean, again, it's facts. But I think they're trying to match that, right? Like, hey, she was like a 15-time, women's champion, so maybe give her something that she can hold her head, held high on, right, before she does, eventually retire.
Yeah. Going off Charlotte, the women's titles,
That's what I was going with.
Ri- Ricky and Bailey, and uh, Becky and Rhea, and then Io and Bailey.
So if you want me to go first on this, I'm gonna say who will
Go
win
for it.
and what. Bailey is gonna take the match, right? I mean,
I agree.
she got taken out of essentially booted out of her own created stable, right? Um, so that will serve sweet justice. And then just Bailey is Bailey hasn't held the title in over 2 years, so again, like she has been doing right by business. Give her due.
And she deserves her WrestleMania moment. So
She does. She, I did like Bailey when she was first came in. Not necessarily the gimmick they gave her, but she ran with it, right?
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't like the hugger gimmick, the crazy, wacky, inflatable arm tube man. All right, cool.
speak for yourself. I'd take hugs from Bailey all day, and my wife knows this.
Well, hugs from Bailey, yes, but as far as the hugger gimmick, I'm like, eh. But yes, give Bailey her due. Like I think she's finally found her real niche, and I think she's more successful as a heel. And right now, she's not a heel anymore. She turned babyface when she got booted out of
Yeah,
Damage Control. Um, going to the Rhea Becky Lynch. Um, I could see this one going either way. Won't be disappointed with whoever does win, but I think Rhea retains the title. Again, won't be disappointed if Becky does pull it off. But little fact I did find out is they didn't. Becky's contract is up in like a month, so that is kind of interesting. Like, unless they re-sign her, then then give Becky the win. But if they don't re-sign her,
yeah.
I mean, they're gonna
Well, if she does win, that should tell you that they re-signed her.
right.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that gives the answer.
Um, in my heart, like I'm leaning towards Rhea retaining. Um, but if she does lose, WrestleMania is the place for it.
Yes.
And I could see it being interference like from Naya. Um, and I could also see her losing would be one of the splinters in Judgment Day. Them and then uh, Finn and uh, what's his face losing the tag titles. Yeah, it'll be like the beginning of Judgment Day falling apart.
Right, and that would be like I know Edge is no longer with the company, but it kind of be like poetry, right? The Judgment Day falling apart. And speaking of Judgment Day, real quick, Damian Priest are not cashing in. Like, is he going to be the first one where this thing is going to technically expire, according to what they've been saying? He's just holding onto a briefcase that essentially carried it around.
Yeah, for a long time, I've been like my big thing was always okay. Like every pay-per-view, I'm like, we got to keep Damien in the back of our mind. And then he comes out and nothing happens.
Yep.
Um, every match, Rhea runs out with the briefcase. Nothing happens. So it's like when it does happen, if it does happen, I think it'll be underwhelming.
It will, and I don't think he's going to win. I think it'll be a failed attempt. Right?
Yeah,
I like Damian Priest. I like the talent he does bring. What he's done with this the stable. But as far as being a top superstar, because you know what title he's going after. I mean, everyone knows you're not going to cash in on the Intercontinental Championship or the U.S. Championship. It's just not going to happen. He's going to go after the world, right? World or universe, or the undisputed one. And sorry to knock off, right now it's Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. He's not at that level.
yeah. And
And
I I wouldn't. I wouldn't be completely surprised if he did cash it in on Gunther. I wouldn't be completely surprised.
He'd be the first cash in on a not no
Second,
disrespect to the title, but it'll be like is it a wasted cash in if you use it on an Intercontinental Championship, or is it written that can it be cashed in on any title?
if I remember, if I'm interpreting it right, I think it's any title, and
I thought it was a world title, but we could talk about that next week if we want to dig into it a little more.
yeah, we could always do a follow up next week. Right before.
Absolutely, because it's a Saturday Sunday event. I plan on watching it both nights.
Me too.
I think I watched. If we could circle back, we talked about let's talk about the tag titles because they're getting defended at WrestleMania as well.
Yeah, that what was it? The 4-way tag match, 3-way.
I believe it is. I don't know. I don't recall all the participants, so maybe I just I want the titles to get out of Judgment Day. I don't think it's like when they had was it did Dominic Mysterio held the U.S. title for a brief stint? Was that correct?
I know Damian Priest did.
Okay, it was Damian Priest.
Um,
I remember, but they almost had like all the titles at one point in time, minus the world title, right?
yeah, Dominic had the NXT North American title.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want that stable. I don't think deserves to kind of have that all the titles, right? I mean, I think there's one stable that did have the big titles, and it was Evolution and the Four Horsemen. Yes, I was going Evolution. I think that stable will go down as one of the best, um, top five anyway in my book.
I mean,
Just
just from the simple fact that Randy Orton and Batista came out of it.
and then you had the not the crafty veteran of Ric Flair, but you had his guidance, right? And then you had, again Triple H, who's all about the business, and then
Yeah,
he's too younger. I mean, not that Batista was young then, because he came in business. He was like 29 or 30, and that's where it's like, oh man, because his stint in the company was short,
yeah,
right? And we never got if we want to go, we never got that Batista versus Brock match, which I think everyone wanted. That I think the ring would have collapsed. Just that amount of superstar power in that ring, that would have been insane.
that ring could only take so many Batista bombs and F5s.
Well, yeah, right, but I'm just saying like that, 6'4", 295, and you got a guy who's 6'6" and 300 pounds like that, and they're all muscle. Come on, just let them throw each other around.
Yeah,
Um, then we got potentially Stone Cold coming in WrestleMania. I mean, he'll be there in the background, but will he make an appearance on the ring? Right?
yeah. I mean, I keep hearing people, saying, "Oh, Stone Cold and Cena." I mean, if Cena shows up, we're never going to see him anyway.
Right. I mean, not you. You refuse to see him.
I'm not even sure he still exists.
Like I still got the empty box for the
Yeah,
Funko Pop
the
head.
Funko
Right?
with him. Yeah. But yeah, they'll be there just because it's Stone Cold and Cena. But them getting involved,
you know,
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't see it. It's
you know,
just some people's hopes, I guess.
hope. I mean, a hope would be Stone Cold faces off with The Rock. Right? I mean,
Just briefly.
granted, but to see them two back in the ring one more time and see Rock take one more stunner. Come on,
Yeah.
you want to see that? The
I mean,
Rock, the oversell and the stunner.
yeah. I mean, he is the boss, and we all know how Stone Cold likes stunning the boss. So
Ask Vince McMahon that when he's not busy.
pooping on people's heads.
Yeah, gross.
Yep. Two girls,
um,
one Vince.
people will pay for that action.
Yeah. Sometimes double.
Um, no high budget stuff, right? Like Bukaki, we're just talking about poo poo stuff. Um, so this podcast is now rated R.
The rated R superstars.
So I think this WrestleMania has the opportunity to be like a top 5 WrestleMania. I think overall on the cards. Do you feel that way?
It definitely has the potential. Um, obviously we can't tell till it's over.
Right.
Um, I don't know how it would knock out any of my top 5. Um, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Which leads into what I wanted to kind of lead into. What are your top 3, top 5 WrestleManias?
Well, we already know my top 1 is WrestleMania 17, right? A couple reasons. The match card on that was star-studded. Second, it was the first time a WrestleMania had the big stage, right? I'll never forget that big stage. Um, and it was in the Astrodome. 60,000 people, one of the biggest crowds of, for WrestleMania. You had Rock versus Stone Cold. You had Triple H versus Undertaker, and I believe it was a no holds bar match. You had that crazy hardcore title match between Kane, Big Show, and Raven, and Raven getting thrown through some glass and thrown off the stage, and you had the TLC 2. Like it was a real star-studded WrestleMania, and it'd be extremely difficult to top that in my book. Second WrestleMania, WrestleMania 20. Um, Promo was awesome for it. Where all begins again. You had Eddie win his title. You had Chris Benoit. I don't know if he could speak good on that name. I think the talent, he deserved the title. He won it, right? So they both superstars that deserve the world title, universal title, or undisputed title in the world title. They both won. And then the only bad match in that unfortunately I thought it was going to be great was Brock versus Goldberg. Turned out to be a really boring match.
Yeah, that was not only was that match disappointing and boring, but no, that was not a match really anybody was clamoring for.
No, and it brought up all like everyone's thinking like, holy crap, these two monsters again, monsters of men. You had Goldberg versus Brock. Everyone knows Brock was about to leave the company, so I mean, was he checked out? And Goldberg, I mean, he was on his way out too. But why not give it? They both of the professionals handled it poorly, and of course, and then the fans received it and obviously let them know what their thoughts were on it by booing both men, which I don't think Goldberg ever really had. Right? Everyone think Goldberg is like Goldberg.
Yeah,
Third WrestleMania, um, WrestleMania 13, and only for one match and one match only. And I think you know where I'm going with this. It was Austin versus Bret Hart in the I Quit match, where Austin didn't
yeah,
quit. He passed out from the pain. He that match, that WrestleMania will go down in history for me is like being number 3. 4, um, WrestleMania 22 in Chicago. Was another good one. Triple H's entrance was pretty epic. The stage I thought was cool. And then the fifth one, WrestleMania 19, Safeco Field. He had the Limp Bizkit performance, but not only that, but again, Rock versus Austin Part 3, where Rock finally pulls it out. Right, you had Brock Lesnar do that unforgettable superstar shooting star press on Kurt Angle, and you know
and
he missed it.
yeah.
We know that. Had a horrible start for Nathan Jones, who had all the potential in the world. He's just really stiff. But those would be my top 5 WrestleManias. Oh, sorry, going back to WrestleMania 22, you had Edge versus Mick Foley, right? They gave Mick Foley his WrestleMania moment, which I thought was right.
Yeah, see, you pretty much had all, with the exception of 13, on the newer side of Manias. And where it's hard for me is so many WrestleManias, especially recently, had those. You could point at this match, that match. So it gets harder for me to kick anything out of my list.
No, okay, I can see that.
Um, like for me, WrestleMania 13, because of that Bret Hart Austin match, which is also one of my top 5 WrestleMania matches. You know, um, WrestleMania 3.
Hogan
Again,
up Andre.
like an Andre. Um, WrestleMania 10. You had
Epic Intercontinental title match versus
Razor Shawn, and
Yep.
then Bret Owen.
Oh, you
Both,
did have Bret Owen.
um, WrestleMania 18. The moment, Rock Hogan. And you know you had great matches sprinkled in all of them. And then my matches, my manias are not particular in any particular order. Because at any moment they fluctuate. So,
If you want to talk about a good match in a WrestleMania, go to last year's WrestleMania, the Triple Threat Intercontinental match: Gunther, Sheamus, Drew McIntyre. Match was like 30 something minutes. Um, really painful because you saw Sheamus doing this whole thing over the rope onto the, hitting the chest
yeah,
on Gunther and Drew, and then you had Gunther doing his chops, so everyone's chest is just like bright red. Um, and that's a match for the ages. I mean, I won't say one of the best matches. A lot of people say the best match was Bret Hart I forget the opponent. It was for the Intercontinental title, and they lay it down as like one of the best matches of all time.
Bret
And
Hart, Kurt Hennig.
I think if that's it, then they got labeled down as one of the best matches ever to happen. Well, do you remember Clash at the Castle? About a year and
I,
a half. Like it was an Intercontinental title match versus Shane. I think it was Sheamus and Gunther. And
I don't remember that. I could.
That match almost topped the Bret Hart Kurt Hennig match for one of the best matches ever. It was, it was. It had everything you wanted. It had, the technical side. It just the throw for throw. It was overall like one of, if I had to pick a match, like top match, that's going on top as far as recently. You have your good matches, right? I mean, you got your Rock versus Stone Cold. You got your Brock versus Kurt Angle. Um, hell, I'll throw it in there when Jeff Hardy went against the Undertaker in a ladder match on Raw for the undisputed title. And how Jeff earned Undertaker's respect at the end of that match.
Yeah,
And I don't think that was written where Undertaker went back and raised his hand. Like that was Undertaker showing him, like, dude, you really have it. Just keep pushing. And that means a lot, especially coming from someone from Undertaker, to tell somebody if you really got it. I mean, people, I know you probably watched Inside the Ropes and all that, but a lot of people go to the Undertaker for a lot of things instead
yeah,
of going to like, hey, Undertaker, does this sound right? He's like, no, you got to do what's best for the business, right? I mean,
yeah.
not you, but you got.
Taker was the man. He was. If there was anybody in those locker rooms that were more respected than him, you couldn't find them.
No, not at all.
Like he he was the ring general before Gunther. You know what I mean? Like anything and everything. He could have no involvement in it, You asked Taker, he said he'll give you his honest opinion.
Yeah.
You know.
Look at the Montreal screw job, right? I mean, we all know what happened. I don't got to go into great detail, but one of them approached Taker, and like I think that was like one of the first times he kind of like, hey, and then it's where Bret Hart cold cocked Vince McMahon, right, and rightfully so. But I kind of see it on both ends of that. If you want to talk about that, like Bret was leaving, he had the title, and Bret didn't want to drop it in Montreal. Well, Vin, it's like it's a business, right? This is what business. You got to do what's best for business, and Bret was against it. That's where I'm not so. It doesn't bother me how they, um, how they got the title right away from Bret. Could they have done it better? Sure, but since Bret was so hesitant of dropping in his hometown, they had to do what
Yeah.
they had to do. Right?
Yeah. You know me. I've always been a Bret Hart guy, and
I see the pink.
uh, real men wear pink. Um, but did was it the right thing to to do business on the way out? Yes, that's where I'm like, I get Vince protecting his company, but everything I've heard, Bret was willing to do business anywhere, do it anywhere but Montreal, anywhere but Canada. You know what I mean? You cross the bridge into Buffalo, do it in Buffalo. You know what I mean? Um, have him lose it on Monday Night Raw. I'm sure, yeah, like, but in Montreal, uh, you know,
No, it's a tough pill to swallow, for
you
sure.
know, I will always say Vince screwed Bret, even if he did it, uh, with the best of intentions of protecting himself and the company.
but Vince said Bret screwed Bret, and is that because Bret didn't want to do business?
And I think that's where, knowing what we know now, 20 some years after the fact, 25 years out of the fact, there's definitely nuance in the conversation.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Um, I'll always defend Bret and saying, not in Canada.
not again.
um, but with that said, if he did lose it in Canada, he did agree to it. I don't think anybody would have looked any less of him.
No,
You know what I mean?
I don't look any less of Bret. Um, a lot of people left due to because of the contracts Ted Turner was handing out. Get paid all this money and only work like half the time. I mean, how could you mean? Okay, right? I mean, that's the whole reason why like Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, all of them left. Um, it's just a real like obviously it's a real controversial moment and
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one that ever happened in the industry.
And definitely the biggest one that happened at what, WrestleMania? That was.
That was the
So,
Survivor Series.
yes, that's right.
That
Thank
was
God.
again a big pay per view though, nonetheless. Survivor Series is a big pay per view. It's not big as WrestleMania, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's
You know that kind of just Montreal screwed up. God, it
that
was
was
right, and it
26
happened
years
right
ago.
at the perfect time too, right? Of the push of the Attitude Era, so it's kind of like had that no take no prisoners kind of attitude too, with it, right?
Yeah,
Right in the middle of the Monday Night Wars, right? WCW was stealing all this talent from WWF. I want to say WWF because it pertained for that time. Um, and that's how I think I'll always remember it, honestly. Um, get the F out, right?
yeah,
It's that I think that was a huge, I could say, win for Team WWE in the Monday Night Wars, just because like all the controversy that came after it, like Vince screwed Brett. I'm like, he's like, no, he came out, he's like, no, Brett screwed Brett. And then you got them 12 years later in the ring shaking hands, Shawn Michaels, Vince McMahon, and he's like, Brett made peace with it. I think Brett made peace with it when he connected with Vince in the locker room.
And me and Katie have been watching the Rivals on A&E, and they had the Shawn Brett rivalry.
Oh, that was.
And I think what at least made me feel better about it is seeing Shawn be remorseful about it.
Right, because he
Vince,
said he.
for all we know, Vince could care less. You know what I mean?
Vince is doing what's best for his business to grow that. So he's got at the end of the day, he's going to make the decision that he feels is going to be best. So obviously, you can't be remorseful in the decision, right? At the end, I'm going to steal this for Pirates of the Caribbean. It's just good business.
Like the WWE Network for $9.99. It's what's best for business.
Yeah, they don't even offer. Do they still offer the network, or do they?
I don't know. It's on Peacock now, but see what happens with Netflix. But
Yeah, that's interesting too. They're going to exclude after the contract's up with the USA. They're going to Netflix for.
yeah, Raw's going to Netflix, and I think SmackDown is moving to USA. If I remember, if I'm getting that right.
You think USA would want to have both, but I'm not in marketing or sales, so maybe I'm wrong.
It's all about the money.
But everyone's streaming, so I think I understand the move to Netflix, right? Everyone has Netflix.
Yeah.
Not everyone has cable the way it has the USA Network.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, everybody had cable.
Yep.
So
this is the way it was, right? I remember, going back. I mean, you probably did this too, just as much as me. But do you remember flipping back and forth?
Yeah.
Like having TNT on the one and having USA and having that previous channel button to try to catch both.
Trying to have two TVs going on at the same time.
Oh yeah, that could not make that. That wasn't happening with me. I only had one. I only had one TV. Well, not one TV in the house, but just like one TV in my room. And I'm like, if I would have asked for another TV in my room, I think I would have got smacked inside the head because it's like almost saying a bad word like gelato.
It was getting to the point where I had on the color TV downstairs, I had one. And then right on top of it, I had the little black and white TV with the other channel on it that I brought downstairs from my room. Just so I could go back and forth.
If there was a perfect spot in the house where I could view both of them, I would have. But there wasn't. These TVs were big. They were heavy. Nothing like these flat screens we have now. You didn't want to move these TVs. If you had to move them, you earned it.
Yeah. You had to do 30 minutes of cardio just before you lifted the TV.
Yeah, then you got your muscle failure right out of the way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if I remember correctly, I remember having like a 32-inch tube TV, if everyone remembers those. And the thing it was a behemoth.
Yeah, it was a piece of furniture.
Yeah. You move those not because you could, it's because you had to.
You better know where that thing's going because it's staying there for 20 years.
Yeah, it's that. You remember the TVs built into the wood, like the console TVs?
Sure. Where the TV screen was only about this big.
Yeah, and it's surrounded all by mahogany.
Yeah, rich mahogany and leather-bound books.
Yeah, that just told you that you're kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And you can do it like 1,000 curls and not even have to worry about it.
That's not nothing. I do 1,001.
No, watch out.
Hey.
Gotta work out those guns.
Yeah, God, the burn, it's so deep. So deep. That's what she said. I had to get it in there. Yeah. Again, that's what she said.
That's what she said.
Yeah. But going back to the wrestling thing, just over the years, going back, let's talk about like the PG product, right? The ratings, how it went from TV 14, and you had the Attitude Era, then you had the Ruthless Aggression Era, and then it's a hard corner to turn when you go from Ruthless Aggression all the way to PG, right? This was bashing someone's face in with a steel chair until they were bleeding, and then you're crying because they called you a butthead. In my eyes, like it's like a hell of a turn because you had like that literally the week prior before it went PG, and it's like now I understand gearing towards a newer generation crowd, you're trying to lure more fans in, but at the same time, in my eye, I just didn't think it was the right move. Like immediate, like the Ruthless Aggression. I mean, you could have kind of worked towards the PG. There was like a hard switch,
Yeah.
right? Not one that a lot of us that grew up watching like the Attitude Era would, I think, agree upon. I mean, I understand times change, but I think consistency is also shows in success. With how the business is doing, and slowly. I mean, obviously they're doing great, but at one time they had no competition,
Yeah.
right? Until like TNA, but TNA I don't think even got close to that level. I think the most threatening one right now is AEW. And again, I don't think it's right. It can really. I mean, it's competing, but it won't be like overtaking the business anytime soon.
Yeah. And since WCW, both TNA and AEW currently at their at TNA's peak, they were still number two. They were competing, but where I think TNA was going wrong, and on Bischoff's podcast, he was there, so he definitely had firsthand knowledge. They were almost turned themselves into WCW, right, with new talent, but WCW, and they got there, and then they started falling off, right? And they're still out there; they're still doing well. Um, to the point where WWE is doing work with them. And AEW, as much I want to see them succeed. I want to see them do well.
No, I do too.
And they're number two, but they're a distant number two. You know what I mean?
I see a lot of superstars from like WWE left to go to AEW that had a lot of influence and bringing that company up. Chris Jericho, Cody Rhodes. Oh, those are just the two. And then JR left to go there, and so they had the cornerstones of. Well, now they only got two out of the three, but still, like to really bring that up, they had the knowledge. So it's of how to do it and do it right. Because I mean AEW. I mean I don't like the fact that they're not stealing. I can't say steal, but WWE let contracts expire like Big Show, Mark Henry, and granted, no one wants to see a 52-year-old 7 foot person wrestle. His knees are shot. He's trying to still compete. I'm like, man, but there's no other place really for him in the wrestling world
Yeah.
to
The
be in
the
the side.
competition is good, but you have to acknowledge, hey, we can't rely with respect to Big Show. You can't rely on him to carry the company.
No,
Is it great that he's there to help give knowledge and guidance? Yes, by all means. You want those people there. You know, Taker, he was hurting at the end of his career, but his value came from his knowledge and being the cornerstone of that locker room.
yeah,
So all those guys coming, that it was good that they had a place to go to pass on that knowledge to the younger guys. The AEW that I have gotten to see, guys like MJF and uh, all those guys, you could see that they're taking it to heart, and they're doing great. They just need,
MJF,
they just need that consistency.
he's kind
With
of funny if you ever listen to him. Um,
oh,
like,
he's great. I
like
think
when
he's
he's yelling,
super
like he's
talented.
getting a move, he's not censored. Um, and I think I love that about him. And obviously it's done intentionally, but he's getting through, like someone's throwing him off for a superplex. He's like, oh shit, and he'll go down, right? And
Which
if that's what makes him work, then that works, right? Keep it. I mean,
which
uh,
speaking of MJF, he after he lost the title, he was I think the one on the inactive roster, and they took him off the roster online. So a lot of people are theorizing that he's going to show up at Mania or Monday Night Raw
the
and
Raw after
and
Mania is usually the good
and
one to
screw
watch.
with Cody.
I think that'll be a good pickup if WWE can get him and use him correctly.
That's the important thing.
Because that thing that fell off. Like I would say, let's go stretch the past 10 years, right? They've had all this talent that you're like, no, you just like you utilizing them wrong, and then they cut them and they let them go. Like I would hate, let's go with Bray Wyatt. Rest in peace. When he first came in, right? He was part of the Nexus, and the Nexus as a whole was a good idea, especially in your favorite feud, probably against John Cena, because John Cena was getting his butt whooped every week. If you didn't
I
know,
love,
this guy doesn't like John Cena.
I don't know. One of my favorite matches was Brock Cena. I love seeing him get suplexed all over the place.
Um, but with that, like a lot of superstars didn't really hit their peak. Like they made a hard push, but on the wrong people. Like they made a hard push on Ryback.
Cryback.
Yeah, Ryback, right? Did he have the potential? Absolutely. He had the size. He had a horrible finishing move, but we won't talk about that.
I, I always call Ryback the Goldberg from Wish.com.
Gilbert could beat Ryback,
It's like, Mom, can we get Goldberg? Sorry, son, we have Goldberg at home.
yeah,
Goldberg at home is Ryback.
which is Ryback.
Hi, Tiff.
Hey, Reg. How's wifey?
She's fabulous.
I think she wants to see wifey real quick.
When we get off, we'll
Okay,
go to wifey.
okay, that works. And I'll bring the phone upstairs so the wifeys can say hi to each other. Wifeys. All right, back to business. Damn it. Like Bray Wyatt, like he found his niche in oh God, I can't
The whole
what?
Fiend and
Well, the
the
Fiend not so much. Like it was good, but when he was just with the Wyatt family,
yeah.
that was it, right? That was him, and they changed it, made like a Firefly Funhouse, and I'm like, really, like.
It
He did what he could with it. Did he make it work?
that
Yes, at
that
times.
that was all him. That was all his creativity and him being out there. And people, I like Bray Wyatt, the wrestler, the guy, the creative guy. Pe- was I more of a fan of the Wyatt family? Yes. Were there people that gravitated towards the Fireflies? Yes. I love with that all. I love the entrance, the lantern, the music. It's got the whole world.
Oh, it was fitting. It
It
worked out
was
perfect for him. Um,
anybody else. I don't think could have pulled that off.
and I did not like, the fact that they cut him, right? Or they released him, I should say. They released him. Um, and they brought him back. And unfortunately, he did pass. And because I would think, if he was still here, I would have had him knock off Roman Reigns.
Oh yeah.
Right? 100%. 100%. Like, it's going to, I understand that you can have Cody knock off Roman Reigns just because everyone wants to see him finish the story. So he's going to do whatever it takes, right? He's going to give it everything he has to beat it. Yes. Can you believe him knocking him off? In a sense, because to finish the story. But if he didn't have to finish the story, could you really see Cody Rhodes knocking off a Roman Reigns?
It's, and I think, again, I like Cody.
I
I really do, and I'm a fan, and I want to see him finish the story
yes.
as much as I want to see Roman Reigns lose. Part of me wants to say that it's like if it couldn't have been Bray Wyatt, it's gonna be Cody. You know what I mean?
But is it But I mean, in a sense, this is me kind of Paul Heyman thinking. Is it believable? I think it's believable because right now, because everyone wants to see him finish the story, and he's going to do whatever it takes, right? If the ref is knocked down, he's going to bring in a chair, hit Roman Reigns a bunch of times, right? Can't say to blame it. All right, right? Everyone's going to want to see Cody Rhodes finish his story. So that's what makes it believable. But if you take that part out, like if he didn't have to finish the story, right? And it was just Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, does it make sense to have Cody knock off Roman? They're two, obviously, um, in like different built personas. Obviously, Roman's the bigger of the two. You know, Roman's the powerhouse, where Cody's like he's a grappler slash technician. Um, but could you see him knocking him off if there was like no other like finish the story? Like I don't find it believable if there wasn't finish the story. I don't find it believable that if he did, right? It's like you would call bull crap on it. It's
No,
almost as um, go with Goldberg versus Brock the second time, right? And they had the idea of who's going to beat Brock in 83 seconds, right? Who's going to do it? Who can do it? Who's going to bring the most shock value to do that? Um, and at the time, the current roster only had one believable person, right? You got to go on the sense of yes, can you find a believable another time? I mean, am I wrong? Um,
take, taking the storyline out of the equation, as I'm thinking about it, based purely on talent, I would say Cody beating Roman would be believable because based purely on talent, I think Cody is better. Um, even going all the way back to the Shield and Cody trying to make Stardust work.
that was I didn't. Oh man, poor Stardust.
I I saw the potential of Cody being higher than Roman. Not saying that Roman's not talented,
No,
and not saying that Roman as long as he stays healthy, because leukemia is a hell of a friggin' thing to go through.
nope, it is.
Um, he still has a very high ceiling.
He does, and I like Roman Reigns. I just I'm disagreeing with these. I think we talked about it on the phone of long title reigns, right? And I think I'm more of a traditionalist as to if I want to be a real traditionalist, go back to like the 70s and 80s where they had all these historical title reigns. But it was like, and during the Attitude Era, there was like almost a title changing every pay per view. Hell, they even did it on Raw or SmackDown. Like it was just constant. Like it was just like holy crap, the shock and the awe. And now it's you kind of it almost feels like the Patriots dynasty at times. It's like okay, here's Roman versus whoever. I bet you know how this ends. Oh look, Solo's getting involved. Oh, called it. Oh, Roman 1, 2, 3. You know,
And that's the thing. I'm with you. Like I'm we're living through the attitude. Like we're both old enough to remember. I'm older than you, but not by much. But Hogan
thank you
holding
for
the
throwing that
title
in
for
there.
like 5 years. Um, Going into WCW and WWF during the Attitude Era, where it's like, and even into the Ruthless Aggression era to a point, they win the title at the pay per view. The next night they lost it.
That's how they did.
Then they hold it for another week, and then they lose it again. 2 months later, they lose it again, and it's just like a constant rotation of guys winning their world title like every other week, and it's like, you know, is it is the title technically a prop? Yes, but you don't want to make it be as insignificant as a cup of though. You know what I mean?
No, I agree there.
And that's where a long title reign, 6 months, a year, can add credibility not just to the title, but to the person holding the title. But with that said, excuse me, you got to have title defenses. I think I saw a meme, a pic not that long ago when Bruno Sammartino held the title for 7 years. He had like over 1,000 title defenses.
Rightfully so.
Hogan had in his 5-year title reign had like 600 title defenses. Could they have been against some Joe Schmo in Indiana? Sure. But it was a title defense. In the last 3 years, Roman had 54. You know what I mean? And how much of it is that because he had leukemia and he was sick? They didn't want to overextend him, which is fair.
But it's that
But then
title
why?
losing
Then why
credibility.
have him hold it for 3 years? You know
Right.
what I mean? So it's like that's why I know me as the fan, with no disrespect to Roman Reigns, you know, is he going to show up to work today? You know what I mean? And good for him for negotiating that contract, but at least show up on SmackDown. You know what I mean? And the fact that Solo and the Usos interfered with every other match, for long time fans,
It makes it very predictable.
it makes it hard.
With how this title reign has been going. Where you just kind of know you already know the outcome. It doesn't matter who they put in. I mean, WrestleMania 31. I remember I watched the match. Um, I'll go say Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns Part One. Um, and it had me believing, like, holy crap, they're gonna allow Cody to do this, and then Solo interfered, or Jay did, one of the two, and Cody got beat. You know, and I think to Cody's um for respect for Cody, I don't think you have someone win the Royal Rumble 2 times in a row, right? Lose at one WrestleMania already, to have him lose again. Like this is going to be the WrestleMania that where Roman is going to drop the title, be it Cody puts everything out on the line, or The Rock, going back to that theory, Rock turning on Roman, or even other people that have been backing up Cody, who also got beef from the bloodline coming in, right? So that if you go to that route, you got half a dozen other superstars that have the potential of interfering in the bloodline because they messed with AJ Styles, they messed with Randy Orton, they they messed with Seth Rollins, they messed with Kevin Owens. I mean, you got a lot. Kevin Owens is going to be in a match on WrestleMania anyway. I believe.
It's going to be.
But I think like I think this should be and it should be the WrestleMania where Roman is finally dethroned, regardless of regardless of whatever scenario we've talked about. They have over 100 different ways they can make this work to have Cody win the title, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
bloodline falling apart. You got The Rock there, which you got the ranking, which I'm glad you brought that up. It's like because that is that kind of it's like that Joker, that wild card, right? I mean, because Roman has never said, "Oh, Rock, you're the high chief." It's always, "I'm the tribal chief. Acknowledge me." But like I said, regardless of however it goes down, Cody's walking out of WrestleMania with the title.
Yeah.
The story has to be finished, right?
Yeah. And if it doesn't, it'll be like 2 years wasted for nothing.
Yeah, you're
You
hyping
know?
Cody up, and he's a great superstar, but 2 years. You've been pushing him for 2 years for this title shot, and you're not letting him. Like you're not. You gotta. There's what's best for business, and then also the respect for the individual who you got going into, right?
Yeah.
This
And
Cody's earned this respect to have this title.
and going to what's best for business. What's best for business? It seems like the whole bloodline thing is a bottleneck right now.
Right.
And how much further can you take it with Roman still being the champ? Having him lose to Cody not only opens up storylines for everybody else, but it opens up storylines for the bloodline with Jimmy and Jay, with Solo, The Rock, even Roman, and any other uh, Samoan superstar that's on the roster right now. Naya, um, Fatu that they just signed. They have it gives them so many more options of possibilities.
Well, not and also, how about the title being defended at more than just 4 pay-per-views?
Yeah, you
Right.
know Cody's going to show up at Raw even if he doesn't defend.
Right, but he's going to be there. He's going to be wrestling in a match.
Yeah,
Right, and I think that's where the business as a whole is going to turn to. Like Seth, when he essentially won the world title in that battle royal or whatever they did, um, he's bringing respect back to the world title as like a like not the decline, but as like a working man's title. Like you're here, I show up every week. Like why not? It's like John Cena with the U.S. title weekly challenge. Like he'll call whoever wants to come out and try to win this title from me, and just him constantly doing that every week. I
yeah,
won't say don't go to that extent with it, but it's like be present at the shows that matter, and that's every Raw, and throw every SmackDown. Like you're the champion. They're like you're almost expected to be there. I mean,
yeah,
in a sense, I mean you're the top guy of the company. Why not kind of lead from that front? Like, yeah, I'm here for it. And
yeah,
no disrespect to Roman and having this disease and him doing what is necessary for him. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, when's enough enough? Like, you gave this guy a 4 year, the one title. It's like, all right, time to pass the torch, right? Throw
yeah,
Roman back in the mix for like a rematch at some point.
yeah.
But
We'll definitely get a rematch from it. It's just and maybe that's where the bloodline continues on for another year or so. To so Roman can get his rematch in. But like you said, it got boring. It kind of got stale, and then since last WrestleMania, it really opened up again
It did.
because they had to finish the story. You know what I mean? And not just for Cody, but for everybody involved.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To free them up to be as good as they are. You know, both Usos, um, you know, AJ Styles, LA Knight, Randy Orton, now CM Punk, Gable, Gunther. It gives everybody the opportunity to rise to the top. And it was a bottleneck, and that's why it got boring.
No, I
You know?
agree. I agree.
But we've been on for an hour and a half, bud.
Yeah, I get you.
We could pick it up next week, right before WrestleMania, if you would like, and even after, whichever.
I'm down for kind of if you want to go along the lines of like doing it before and like a little recap, like do like a little 30-minute before podcast and then a recap after each night. I'm down for doing a couple, right?
All right, so we'll set everything up, and thank you for being here with me, and look forward to finishing the story.
Yeah. Luckily, my story is a picture book, so it's gonna be easier for me.
Yeah, alphabet book, animals.
Dinosaurs.
Oh, that's a good one.
I can't wait.
All right, bud.
All right.
Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Yup. Peace. Stay on. Stop recording, but stay on.
Okay.
Okay.
Peace out.
Okay. Okay. Peace out.